Moynihan, and this is Common Sense HD. Today's show is on social justice. Today's guest is a Catholic activist and social justice activist named Paul Magno, who is nationally known, but yet as well comes from Burlington. This show is in a sense, a continuation of the earlier show with Arlene DeRocco, where we had sort of laid a footprint for my discussion with Paul. What we're going to do is have Paul. Paul, you there?
I am. Good evening.
Good evening, Paul. Paul is calling from Washington, D.C. right now. Paul works for a nonprofit organization, Witness for Peace, and as well as on the board of directors for the Washington Peace Center, and has been associated with a number of nonprofit for peace organizations and anti-torture organizations. Paul, why don't you introduce yourself and provide us a little bit of a bio so that a number of people, I'm sure, are going to recognize some of the landmarks that you might describe as part of your history, such as your attendance at Austin Prep and whatnot.
Sure. Well, I did grow up in Burlington and lived there until the middle of high school, when my family got transferred my father got transferred to Washington, D.C., and we all moved to the Washington area. So I started high school at Austin Prep, but I finished at a place called Good Counsel in Wheaton, Maryland. So most of my childhood years were in Burlington, and that included going to school at Pine Glen and Francis Wyman, and then going to church at St. Margaret's Church on Wynn Street, and usually getting pretty good grades in CCD class and serving as an altar boy.
So where did you attend college?
Right here in Washington, D.C. I went to Georgetown University, started in the business school, and eventually graduated from the College of Arts and Sciences with a sociology degree. And college was very formative in terms of my learning something about the Catholic social justice doctrine and meeting people, especially my mentor, Father Richard McSorley, who were really decisive for me in pointing me in the direction of taking that seriously and trying to learn how to live it out.
When you say live it out, how do you mean that?
Well, I mean, I think that there are, well, for me, it ultimately meant getting involved in a movement called the Catholic Worker Movement. This is, lay people in the Catholic Church who opt to live in voluntary poverty, live in community, practice the works of mercy, and advocate for peace and justice. And they do that on a voluntary basis without getting paid for it. And I lived in a succession of Catholic worker communities in Washington here for about 13 years before finally moving out and living apart from the worker, but down the street, and still very much connected to it and inspired by it in what I'm trying to do with my life to date.
So is that Dorothy Day movement?
Yes, Dorothy Day and Peter Morin were the two individuals who started the Catholic Worker Movement in 1933 in the context of the Great Depression, a really serious need to not only respond to the immense economic crisis, but the social crisis that went with it as well. Not only did we have an economic depression, but it was a time when everything about our political society in the United States was prospectively up for grabs because the economy was so destabilizing.
So your actions, your social actions, are nonviolent?
Very much about nonviolence. What I try to do, and what we try to do when we engage in public witness, such as this video we'll see, is to try and illuminate and embody the Christian message of And that, at heart, to my mind, it's really clear to me that, Jesus is about very serious nonviolence, not only refusing to exercise violence himself, but insisting that justice means nonviolence, and
so
that's what's going to lead to real, meaningful
right,
peace
and
social order.
I asked the question relative to wanting to separate you very much from the sort of some of the more militaristic actions, such as occurred in Austin, Texas a couple days ago. The actions that you guys take are more, as your current organization association is, Witness for Peace.
Oh, very much so.
Up on the screen right now is a video of Paul Magno, Mr. Magno, and what is occurring is he's actually chained himself with some assistance to the White House fence. And why don't you, my take is that it's in response to the 100-day promise, which didn't occur, which was to close Guantanamo and Bregan. And is there any truth to that understanding?
That's right. At the beginning of his presidency, President Obama said that he would close Guantanamo within a year, and that year has come and gone, and Guantanamo still remains, which is the problem. This action took place last year on Good Friday in the midst of a campaign that Witness Against Torture had conducted. For the first 100 days of President Obama's term, they would maintain a daily witness in front of the White House or in the streets of Washington, reminding the president and reminding all of us that there are still hundreds of men in Guantanamo suffering with no clarity about whether or when they'll ever be released. And they have been subjected to abuse and torture, and we just need to continue to uphold them and understand the human suffering going on, and also the scandal to our country going on in the conduct of Guantanamo.
And so you don't resist arrest. I want to make that part clear. You understand that you're probably going to be arrested or detained for a while, and your process is not one of an arrest resistance, but actually part of your statement is to actually go through the, in a sense, the system.
That's right. We don't believe we're doing anything that is wrong when we engage in these kind of public witnesses, and in the spirit of Jesus, who understood he wasn't doing anything wrong when he denounced the Roman occupation of his country or the religious authorities who abused their office, and you have a right to and a need to say what you need to say, and you live, and Jesus accepted consequences, accepted suffering, accepted death on a cross, and so this is how we turn the tables on a society that inflicts suffering. We don't want to be inflictors of suffering, but we are willing to accept injustice, accept imprisonment, and